You know that person who always picks up the phone? The one who remembers everyone's bad week without being reminded? Who somehow knows something's wrong before anyone says a word? Friends cry in their car on the way home from seeing them. Family calls at midnight. Colleagues say, "You're the only one I can talk to," and mean it as a compliment. That person probably looks fine from the outside, steady, reliable, like someone who chose this. But here's what nobody sees. They didn't choose it, not really. Somewhere along the way, the role chose them, and by the time they noticed, they'd already built an entire identity around being needed. If you're the one everyone leans on, this isn't about how strong you are. It's about what you learn to do to feel safe. Most people assume this kind of person is just naturally nurturing, emotionally gifted, born for it. But the research says something different. The ones who become the emotional anchor for everyone around them weren't born that way. They were trained into it, usually early, usually by a system that needed them to be. Here's the part nobody warns you about. Being the person everyone leans on isn't a personality type. It's a survival response that never got turned off. And the next few minutes will explain exactly how that system was built and why it's still running. There's a term for this: emotional parentification. It sounds clinical, so here's what it actually means. At some point, often in childhood, you stepped into an emotional role that was too large for you. Maybe a parent was struggling and needed steadying. Maybe the house was unpredictable and managing everyone's feelings was the fastest way to keep things calm. Maybe nobody said it out loud. You just noticed what happened when you didn't. The role didn't come with a title. It came with feedback. When you helped, things settled. When you didn't, they unraveled. So your nervous system filed this away. Other people's emotional states are your responsibility, not as a belief you chose, as a reflex you were conditioned into. That reflex is what you're still running today. Think about what happens when you walk into a room and the energy goes flat. Someone's upset. Nobody's saying anything. Most people wait. You don't. You're already scanning. Who needs what? What's the fastest way to stabilize the atmosphere? You didn't decide to do this. It happened before you were conscious of it. This is hypervigilance turned social. Researcher Judith Herman, studying trauma and recovery, found that people raised in unpredictable environments develop a finely calibrated threat detection system, except the threat they learned to track was emotional, not physical. Other people's moods became data you learned to act on fast. The real-world implication: you're not empathetic by nature alone. You're empathetic by necessity, which means you've never been given the space to find out what you actually feel when nobody needs anything from you. And here's the second layer most people miss. The role doesn't just shape what you do, it shapes what you believe you're worth. When you're the one everyone leans on, you stop expecting to be leaned on back. You start equating your value with your usefulness. Researcher Brené Brown's work on shame and belonging points to this directly. People who grew up performing emotional labor to earn connection learn to treat worth as something that must be demonstrated, not assumed. So you don't ask for help, not because you're proud, because somewhere in the architecture of your early life, needing help felt like a cost, like it would burden someone, or confirm something you'd been quietly afraid was true about you. Someone probably told you were mature for your age. Maybe they meant it as a compliment. They called you the responsible one, the wise one, the one who had it together, and you carried that. You built a life around it. But here's what that actually was. You were a child, or a young person, or simply someone without the resources yet to say no in a situation that asked too much. And you adapted, not because you were strong, not because you were built for this, because adaptation is what humans do when the environment requires it. You read the room because the room needed reading. You held people together because falling apart wasn't something anyone around you was modeling. The support you gave so freely, quietly, consistently, without keeping score, you deserved that first. Nobody made it available to you, so you became it for everyone else instead. You weren't strong enough to need help. You were never taught that you could. This pattern doesn't dissolve just because you understand it. Understanding is the beginning, not the end. The system runs on an old equation. My safety depends on your stability. That equation made sense once. It may not apply the same way anymore. What actually governs this behavior is a cost-benefit calculation your nervous system learned before you could evaluate it consciously. Being needed felt like belonging, withdrawing felt like risk, so the pattern kept running because it kept working by its own original terms. The shift isn't about helping less, it's about learning that your presence doesn't require a function. You're allowed to exist in rooms you aren't holding together. Here's what it comes down to. You didn't become the one everyone leaned on because you're unusually strong. You became it because a system required it, and you were adaptive enough to fill the role. That's not a flaw. It's not even a wound. It's information about how you were shaped and where you have room to reshape. So here's the question for the comments. When someone offers to help you, is your first instinct to accept or to redirect them straight back to their own problems? If this explains something you've never had words for, subscribe. That's what every video on this channel is trying to do. Next up, the psychology of people who always leave before they can be left.